Welcome to the Evolution of Success podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest, Dr. Leyden, internationally known humanitarian, trauma healing expert, visionary and spiritual guide. Lori, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And I so appreciate what you're doing to support people through your podcast.
Yes, and well, I'm enjoying it because I'm getting to speak to people like yourself. And I know that our good friend Natalie Ledwell, who introduced us, Natalie's always spoke really highly of you as well. And I've been really excited about this since I knew that you were coming on, just to speak to you, because I know this is something that, you know, whenever you deal with trauma and stuff, this is your expertise. You know, this is what you do. So do you want to just give us a fill us in on everything that you guys do?
Yes. So I have a nonprofit called Create Global Healing. And through that nonprofit, I work in post-genocide communities like Rwanda, where I've been working for the last 13 years. We work in Aboriginal communities and refugee communities in Australia, and post-school shooting environments here in the United States. Through this work, I have really come to be able to look at what miracles can come out of tragedy. And I combine the work with a spiritual practice I received after a near-death experience called the grace process. And so what I can do today is offer several strategies to people who, you know, at a time when the world is all focused on one thing, this is also an opportunity for the world to focus on what we want versus what we don't want. And so I'd love to share some of those things with you, as well as talk about the heart-brain-body connection, which people literally can use as strategies to calm their stress.
Yeah, that's brilliant, because, you know, the people that my clients that I've been working with, and some of my friends and even family members, you know, all of the focus is on this one thing, and it's on the news and it's on various different things like that, because so I know there's people personally in my life, including myself at times, would definitely benefit from these. So I'm looking forward to them. Let's get one on the go.
Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about the heart-brain-body connection. There's actually a group called HeartMath, which has been studying the physical power of the heart for the last 30 years. And what we know is that the first organ to develop in the human fetus is actually the heart, which starts to beat before the brain even forms. We know that positive emotions can create physiological benefits in our bodies and boost our immune system, while negative emotions can interfere with our nervous system and our immunity. So the most important piece here is that the heart has its own brain. And in order to effectively communicate with the brain, when we're in lower states of fear, we activate the reptilian brain, and there's a lot of stress hormones coming through the body. And in those places, we can't access our highest human gifts of connectedness and transcendence, inner wisdom, creativity, problem solving. Now, this may seem kind of lofty right now under the current circumstances, but if we understand that we can literally interrupt the flow of stress hormones in our bodies with some simple techniques, and we can be able to feel more peaceful in our bodies, and then our response to what's happening outside of us will be more measured, more expansive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does, because I think that, well, I know whenever I'm working in fear, you know, I'm never really rational. You know, there's a lot, it takes away all of your rational thoughts and your decision making, and it really puts people into a spiral, I find. Yeah. You know, they just go off in, and the further they go into that world, the harder I think it is to communicate with them.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, we have an opportunity right here to focus on what it is that we want for ourselves, our loved ones, in our world. And as you said, the way to be able to access those things that we desire is to bring peace and calm to our heart, our brain, and our body. And so I use these two techniques. One is the grace process, which I received in a near-death experience, as I mentioned, and Eft Tapping. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And this tapping I use as well as the grace process in my humanitarian aid work. And through a series of tapping on certain acupressure points on your face and your body, we actually calm the stress center in the brain. And we can literally interrupt the flow of those stress hormones so that we feel more connected in our bodies and our bodies feel more grounded. And so one of the first things we can figure out here is your body will tell you if you're running in fear or not versus being in your heart. And so all we need to take a look at is how is our breathing? If our breathing is contracted, if our muscles are contracted, we're in fear mode, and it's time to take a mental timeout, to take a few healing breaths. So I ask people to do diaphragmatic breath work for just 1 to 2 minutes every hour, just to reset our physiology. And then once the physiology is reset, we can obviously then respond more healthily to what we're experiencing. Do you have any experience with diaphragmatic breathing, Matthew?
I have with I use breathing techniques with meditation, and I always use it to calm me down. I think I was self-taught about 10 years ago more, that I just sort of caught on. If I breathe different here, my anxiety's dropping. And the first time I ever got into meditation, I felt like my whole body dropped, like shifted down, and that was a massive thing for me. But I've never heard it really broken down exactly the way that you're telling me right now. So I'm finding this fascinating. It's great.
Beautiful. Well, when we practice EFT, it's like meditation on steroids, if you will, in the good sense. Nice. When we're tapping on certain one of these acupressure points, we are also physiologically helping ourselves. At times like this, it can be very difficult to meditate because there's so many intrusive thoughts. And so I'm actually doing these healing calls every Saturday, in which I introduce the grace process and EFT in a healing session, which I'm happy to share with your listeners.
Yeah, please do. Yes, 100%.
And then how can we do that, Matthew?
I will put this in, all the details of that will be in the post. So I know that you've sent me the details, and it's every Saturday. PST, is it? What time?
3:30, so it might be a little late, but if people register for the call, they'll receive the recording as well as instructions on how to do EFT and how to do the grace process.
Well, we will get all that information off you, and we will attach it to the copy of this podcast. We'll put it in the details, and everybody, please do check out the post attached to this, because it's going to have all the details where Laurie will be carrying this out on Saturday.
And so, Matthew, also, the beauty of EFT is we get to tell the truth. So we just take whatever is on our minds and we use that as we are tapping on these acupressure points so we can calm our physiology and calm our fears. And we'll be doing that on Saturday also. But the piece that I'd love to share with people from the grace process is I ask people to do what I call a rage of gratitude every day. And I know it sounds, everyone's talking about being grateful, but gratitude literally boosts our immunity, and it activates that heart-brain-body connection very quickly. And when you notice that you can think of all the things that you have to be grateful for, it feeds on itself, and then you just keep thinking of more things. And when we're in gratitude, we can't help but feel feelings of love. And from that place, it's even possible to open to wonder. And so the other exercise I ask people to do is to find something to be in wonder about, to actually approach something as if you've never experienced it before, with the mind of a child and the heart and innocence of a child. And if you do that for 3 minutes, you will feel yourself rejuvenated. And in that moment, it's possible for grace to drop in those moments when we're in gratitude and wonder, where we can feel more connected, more grounded, more peaceful. And so those times when we think of something to be in wonder about, it could be something in your imagination, it could be something in your physical space, just anything at all, for just 3 minutes, and notice what happens in your body. And all of the things I've mentioned are great tools for parents to teach their children. There's a lot of great work to be done there and actually make the family life a little more lighthearted, a little more stress management that the entire family can practice. So those are the basics, doing that diaphragmatic breath work, adding tapping in the grace process, focusing on what we want, not what we don't want. What really matters to you right now? And how can you ensure that life after the virus will be focused on what matters, what truly matters to you and your loved ones and your family and your communities? It's always about finding the miracle and the tragedy, even as we need to grieve some of the things that we're losing and the loved ones that we're losing. But we have to focus on what we have control over, not what we don't have control over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think with the work that you do, and I know that you've worked on some of the biggest tragedies that the world has presented itself, in the past, and I know that you've done some amazing work there. With the people that you've worked with have been really traumatized to beyond reason, and this work helps them come through it. How can you relate this to some of the people right now, even that just are kind of just like they're living in fear? They don't know the uncertainty about financial debts, the uncertainty about the kids going through stuff that their university, maybe they're not going to graduate and they're worried about that. First of all, we're worried about not having a spring break party. Now they're thinking, oh my God, am I going to graduate? So for somebody who has never really done this before and is thinking, this is not the time for me to look at this, and we know that this is the time exactly to look at it, how do you present your organization to a person like that?
Well, so first of all, that we have the credibility after working with thousands of people. My big task is to educate people that stress and trauma dysregulates the body's hormonal system. And so we can get into such a place where we've got all these stress hormones flowing through our bodies that we don't feel in control. And so it's important to understand that physiologically and scientifically, if we practice the things that I've mentioned on the podcast, we are literally doing the one thing we do have control over, which is handling our physiology. And everything springs from there. So the thing with the grace process in EFT is, once we release the fear and we get to a peaceful place in the body, no matter what you may be experiencing, you have the opportunity to think more clearly, to make better decisions. And so it empowers the individual. Instead of looking for advice outside of ourselves, we're actually tapping into our highest human gifts, which is our own inner wisdom. And that's what makes real change and evolution. And so if all the parents in the world, if all the educators and mental health people and health services people could access this technology, this heart, brain, body technology to nurture our young people, we literally have an opportunity to change society. And so again, I thank you for that question, because it may seem ridiculous. I too am facing a great deal of uncertainty, as most of my business is being on country, working with people in these locations. And so I'm not just saying this as a frivolous thing. I too am being affected, and I practice ever more. At times like this, our deepest fears are going to be triggered. Our fears of loneliness, disconnect, even disconnect from whatever you consider to be divine. And this is a time when we need that connection the most. Did I answer your question there?
Yeah, no, totally you did. And, whenever you're going through, even personally now for me, as I've said all throughout the past week and a half on each podcast, my stresses that were around 6 months ago or 3 months ago aren't the same today. They're completely different. I think I've been practicing for self-isolation for a while. My team all work kind of remotely, and I've really enjoyed this downtime to sort of get to speak to people like yourself and get to speak to other thought leaders and experts. And I've actually really enjoyed this. Now, I have been directly affected by, COVID-19 as well. There has been family members who have got it, who have currently going through it right now, and I hope that everything works out the way that it should do. And that's, so I have had my ups and downs. Even for the first, 7 days, 8 days of like self-isolation, I was actually really busy with work. We've been really busy. Our team has been very busy. And then whenever it sort of came to like a Friday evening, I was thinking, God, I'm going to go out for dinner tonight. We weren't allowed. I was mentally, so it wasn't until the Saturday that I like had took a shift and my own body had shifted,
Yes, yes. Because as the longer this goes on, obviously, the more we face reality, the more we face ourselves, actually. And just imagine, for those of us who are able to find that deep presence in our hearts, for those of us who are able to find peace, even through what I call the wobbles and all the different experiences we're having, can you imagine the more that we connect our hearts together, the more we create that feeling of safety for ourselves, the more we can do that for other people. I mean, just going to the grocery store and seeing the grocery store clerks, who are now first responders, and seeing how they're being treated or not being treated, seeing their stress level and being able to just be present to them with a bit of kindness, with a bit of gratitude, it feeds on itself. And so we can't forget that every heart makes a difference. And again, with this heart-brain-body connection, we have the tools right inside of ourselves to bring ourselves to more peace and interrupt that stress physiology.
Yeah, I feel as well that there is a lot of love around at the minute as well. I feel a lot of love around me and a lot of funniness as well, because at the start of it, everybody was sharing, the news and the news and the news. And I had asked the people around me, look, just hold back from doing that. And then there's memes, there's funny pictures, there's old family pictures, there's reconnecting with all my relatives, my aunties, my cousins. We're doing Zoom calls and WhatsApp FaceTimes, and there is a lot of love around. Are you experiencing that side of things?
Absolutely, absolutely. I look for the good news. I look for the ways that neighbors are reaching out to other neighbors, or simply even in these times of stillness and silence, or a little more silence than we're used to, just a kind-hearted look from a stranger, like we're all in this together. The miracle of our healthcare workers and their perseverance and their resiliency, the way that countries and communities are cooperating, is a beautiful thing. And that's where you really know that the human spirit, one of our greatest human gifts, is our resiliency. And again, by honoring that and seeing that, if my Rwandan orphan genocide survivors can find peace in their hearts and heal their trauma and become heart-centered leaders through their harrowing experiences and losing their entire families, then we too can do that. In fact, if people go to one of my websites, createglobalhealing.org, we have a documentary that shows the work that we did with my Project Light Rwanda ambassadors and connecting them with the young people in Sandy Hook, Connecticut after the Sandy Hook, Connecticut school shooting. And so we begin to see that resilience and can actually be inspired by it as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Natalie told me about that documentary actually, so I will check that out as well. God, no, that's amazing. So you're doing like unbelievable work, and I think this definitely there's been people on talking about how to sort of bring their businesses back, and there's people been talking about how to do various different things throughout the past 10 days. But I do think that the one thing that is coming through really, really hard on all of them is about practicing gratitude. No matter whether someone is more business orientated, healing orientated, it all stems back to and I always say gratitude is the absolute way to bring more into your life. And it definitely is something that I live by. And I think that, all of you guys are proving this to be real.
Yes. Well, there's actually science that proves that gratitude boosts the immune system and literally can shift our perspective on many, many things.
Brilliant. Well, Laurie, that was great. Thank you so much for coming on. We're keeping these in around 20 minutes because we find that they're easy to get people to listen to whenever they're just out for a walk, and they sort of get in and out, and they can do a couple in one go if they have time. So thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it, and I look forward to meeting whenever I get out to LA. I was meant to be in LA right now, by the way. I was meant to fly today. You just got my visa for the States. So yeah, my plans have changed slightly. So thank you so much, Laurie, for coming on, and I look forward to talking to you again.
As do you, and thank you so much for the service you're doing.